I have so many problems with this book. I really loved Reese, which no surprise there. This is the next one. I'm sorry, I had to do it. I had to do it. This calls for it, you know what I mean? I feel like you would look at this book and be like, it doesn't look that good, but let me tell you. And her only friend is a plant, which, listen, I can relate to that. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. I have not shared with you guys any of the books that I've read recently, mostly because I was gone for 10 months of the year, but also because I really haven't read that much this year, which is okay. If you haven't met your goal for the year, don't worry, you're not the only one, that's for sure. I thought I would share with you all of the books I read over the past 6 months. So from June until now, it's been an interesting reading year, definitely one where I think I've stepped out of my comfort zone with the books that I do pick up. I've also read a lot of books that I didn't like. More than years past. I definitely am a pretty easy reader. It's not hard for me to like a book as long as I can really get into it. I tend to enjoy it. I am more about the reading experience rather than the way that the book is written. Of course, when there is a book that's written really well, it definitely stands out to me and will become a favorite of the year. But for the most part, I tend to enjoy most books that I read. But like I said, there were some books this year so far that I have not enjoyed. So there are a few in here as well. Before we get into these books, I wanted to mention really quickly how much that I really appreciate all of the love and the support that I've gotten over these past few months that I've been uploading. This has been probably, I feel like I'm gonna get emotional, but I was in such a horrible place at the beginning of the year, and to see where I am now and how much that I have grown and how much that I truly enjoy uploading videos. I have had so much fun filming and editing and uploading for you guys, way more than I did even when I first started my channel. And I'm really happy to finally be in a place where I'm finding joy in something that I'm doing. And I feel like it's been a long time coming, that's for sure. But thank you guys so much for being there for me. For those of you who have been here since the beginning of me starting my channel, and for those of you who have just found my channel, I really appreciate all of the support, all of the comments, all of the watching of my videos. It truly means the world to me, and I hope I can give you the same sort of feeling that you guys give me every single time that I upload. I've been feeling very sentimental today, so I thought I would share my thoughts on that really quickly. But I have my coffee, so if you want to join me, you can grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and I will share with you all of my recent reads. I'm going to be going from the first book that I finished in June to now. I finished this book actually on June 1st, and it is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. This was one of those books that when it first came out, I was like, I need to read it. I don't know if you guys ever experienced this, but sometimes I'll see a book and I'll be like, that's gonna be a 5-star book for me. And this was one of those for me. Luckily, it did live up to its expectations, which I was really happy about because sometimes they don't. This is her newest series and it is so good. This is about Bryce Quinlan, who I'm pretty sure is like half Fae, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that. It's been since June. And her life is turned upside down when her closest best friend gets murdered by a demon. She then teams up with Hunt Athalar, who is a fallen angel, and it's kind of an enemies to lovers type of situation. And they team up to uncover what happened to her best friend. They also discover a dark power that could threaten everything that they love. This world was so vibrant and colorful, and I really enjoyed this world. It was definitely so much different than anything that I had read before because it felt more modern. It had more of like a city feel to it. I really enjoyed it. I feel like the main theme of this book is love and what you will do for those that you love. And it's just, it was really good. If you love Sarah J. Maas, then you'll love this for sure. So yes, definitely pick it up if you're a fan. Next one that I have was a huge surprise. I was not expecting to like this one as much as I did. And that is The One by John Mars. Again, another book that I finished in June. June was actually a really good reading month for me. Not only did I have really good reads, but I actually read quite a bit. This was such a surprisingly good book. I feel like you would look at this book and be like, it doesn't look that good, but let me tell you, it's definitely one of my new favorite thrillers. It's such an interesting concept. This is about a DNA test which can tell you who your soulmate is based on your DNA. So you will be paired with your genetically perfect partner. But this test has had a ton of downsides as well. It's completely changed the way that people date, and it's led to a lot of divorces and breakups. So this goes into 5 different stories of 5 of the people who took this test. All of their stories end with a twist, and oh my goodness, were there twists and turns throughout the entire book. That was something that I absolutely loved about this, is how twisty that it was. From beginning to end, I feel like there was twist after twist, and they were good twists. It wasn't something that felt like too much, you know what I mean? Also, one of the perspectives is from a murderer, psychopath murderer. I highly recommend this one for people who aren't super into mystery thrillers, because there isn't a lot of gruesome details or anything like that. Most of the perspectives don't have any sort of like murdering happening. So yes, I just loved it. This is the next one. I'm sorry, I had to do it. I had to do it. This calls for it, you know what I mean? Look how cute that is. I love it so much. So yes, this is the next book that I read, Namesake by Adrienne Young. And I read this first one last year and I really enjoyed it. It was definitely one of those like very casual readings. I was doing my laundry and I was listening to the audiobook, but I had a lot of fun with it. I loved Fable as the main character. She's so fiery and independent and just such a strong female character. I loved her so much. It was such a joy to read from her perspective. This has all of the good piratey vibes that you could want. It's such a short little duology that I think it's just the perfect little duology to pick up, especially during the summer seasons. Again, this is a pirate story about Fable, and she is a descendant of a pirate king, and her mother taught her this really special gift, which is that she's able to hear these really precious gemstones that are found in the sea. So that is what she does. She goes out into the sea with them and she's able to find these stones and bring in a profit for the pirates. She then starts up a little romance with one of the captains of the ship, and oh, it's just so good. This first book was way more about her getting off of this island that her father abandoned her on, and this one was more about her mother's story and finding this really precious stone. Anyways, both of them are great. I loved them so much, and definitely I think this is a series that I'll reread in the future since it was so easy to read. Next one I actually don't have a copy of anymore because that's how much I disliked it. That book would be The Sanatorium by Sarah Peirce. This book was kind of a little bit of a roller coaster for me. The first maybe like half or maybe like quarter of the book was actually really good and I enjoyed it a lot. But man, let me tell you, I have never been so let down by the end of a book. Even like the middle, I have so many problems with this book. I do not recommend reading this book, but if you're wanting to, I'm going to mention a quick spoiler, so skip ahead to this time if you plan on reading it. The R word should never be a twist of a book. I was just so sad that the main twist of the book was this female character is murdering people because of something that happened to her, and she's murdering women. It will never make sense to me. It will never. Not only that though, I just think that the main character was not a very good main character. She was supposed to be a police officer who was kind of like down on her luck type of deal, and she was solving a crime at this sanatorium, which is now a hotel. But she made the stupidest decisions and none of it really made sense. At one point she calls the Swiss police. They're trapped up in the sanatorium and there's a killer on the loose, okay? So she calls the Swiss police and she's like, hey guys, so there's a killer on the loose. Can you guys get up here? They're like, no, it's too snowy. Can you solve the murder for us? It doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, do not recommend this book, but you know, to each their own. Maybe you'll like it more than me. I have to say, I'm not usually this passionate about disliking a book, so I'm so sorry to anyone that did like it, but this was just not for me. Okay, so the next few books I actually started reading when I went to Mexico. My husband and I celebrated our 5-year wedding anniversary this July. Our anniversary is on the 2nd of July. So we decided to go to Mexico, which was definitely an experience. It's a story for another time, but I brought a few books with me to read, and one of those books was The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This was such a good book to read on the beach, and I'm gonna keep this copy for forever. It's definitely loved and used. I also wrote in here that I finished it in Cancun on our 5-year anniversary, so it's a very special book to me, and I think this one is one of those books that I have a lot of sentimental attachment to. About Lucy, who is a happy, joyful, little quirky, petite girl, and she works at a company alongside Joshua, who is completely the opposite. He's meticulous, grumpy, uptight. They are both up for the same promotions, and their dislike for each other increases because of this. But they also have to spend a lot more time with each other. So you can see where this is going. They start to become friendly and maybe discover that they don't hate each other as much as they thought. It was such a cute book, and I think I rated this like a 4-star book, I think. The next one that I read, I also picked up during my trip, and that is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. Definitely the type of book that you want to pick up when you're on vacation, and I really enjoyed this one as well. This was definitely not as good to me as The Hating Game, but I really loved the main character in this one. I thought that she was way more dynamic, and I loved her family. I just loved seeing how they supported and loved each other, and her twin sister are so close. The character's name is Olive in this, and her twin are completely opposites from each other. Olive's sister is getting married, which means that Olive has to deal with the best man named Ethan, who is her arch nemesis. During the wedding though, everyone gets food poisoning except for Ethan and Olive, which means that they have to go on the honeymoon instead of the bride and groom. So again, they have to spend a lot of time with each other, and they start to see that maybe they don't hate each other. Kind of like the last book. Anyways, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Out of the two, this was definitely my favorite, but either way, I don't think you could go wrong. They're a lot of fun. Okay, the next one that I read was Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. So I've had this book on my shelves for a while. I actually tried to start this book a few years ago, but I never finished it. So I picked it up randomly. I think I saw it on Book Talk, and I was like, ooh, maybe I should read that. I rated it 3 stars, which is a pretty low rating for me. Mostly because I don't really remember a lot of it. Like when I was reading it, it kind of just meshed together, and I'm not really sure if that's my fault or if that's like the writing style just wasn't something that caught my attention. So this is about Fortuna, who is the last of her kind, but her power is that she is able to lure humans in. So I'm pretty sure that she can change the way she looks to appeal to whoever she's trying to seduce? Question mark? I don't know if that's right. Her brother disappeared a few years ago, and so she spends her days working at a bar and her nights trying to find her brother. One night, a mysterious fae comes to her and offers her a deal she can't refuse. Reluctantly, she agrees to go with him and steps back into this magical world from whence she came. That's pretty much all I remember about it. I do remember that I actually did like their relationship. Like he really wanted to be with her, and I kind of liked how she was like, not into it at first. I remember getting to the end and definitely being intrigued, and I bought the second book almost immediately after I finished this one, so I obviously didn't dislike it too much. I just don't remember a whole lot of it. Okay, the next one that I read is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Man, I loved this book. I am a huge fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think I always will be. I've read now 4 of her books. One of them I didn't love, but it was her first book ever written. The rest of them I've absolutely loved reading, and this one was no exception. This is about a group of siblings who live in Malibu and are all descendants of a famous singer named Mick Riva. He has been a very subpar father. This goes into the backstory of their father and their mother, how they met, and their childhood growing up. It then also goes into present day and how the actions of their parents have affected them as adults. Oh my gosh, it's so good. For anyone who has had like childhood trauma, this is such a good book. It definitely could be triggering, but man, they explore it in such a good way, and I absolutely loved the characters in this book. I loved how much that they grew from the beginning to the end, how they started to stand up for themselves. I also loved seeing them make decisions based on how they were raised. It was just so good. I loved it so much. I just love her writing, and she knows how to give you a hard-hitting, tear-jerking, heart-wrenching story. Okay, the next one I read is actually a graphic novel, and that is Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is a bind-up, which is actually 3 different graphic novels, but this has all of them together. I read the first graphic novel bind-up a few years ago, but this one was so much better. I loved it so much. If you guys are fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender, you'll love this one. This goes into Zuko and his mother's relationship, where his mother went, because in the series you don't really know what happened to his mother. So, it was so good. It was also like a full circle type of graphic novel. The way that it began and ended was just full circle and beautiful, and I loved it so much. These bind-ups are really cool as well because they have notes from the author on the side. They talk about how they formatted the book and why they made certain decisions, how they wanted the illustrations to turn out. And I just loved reading this graphic novel. Definitely a 5-star read for me. So good. Okay, the next one is another Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I actually started The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo before Malibu Rising. I wanted to read up till the part where it talks about McRiva in this book, and then I picked up the Malibu Rising and then finished this. I hope that makes sense. But I'm actually really glad I did it that way because it was kind of cool to read McRiva in this, go to his children, and then come back to this again. I don't know. Definitely like more immersive for me. This is obviously about Evelyn Hugo, who is a famous movie star from the 50s. So this is all about her life and obviously the 7 husbands that she had in her life. Each of the sections is titled with the husband that she's married to at the time. And I just loved that formatting. One of the things that Taylor Jenkins Reid does the best, in my opinion, like I don't think I've ever read anyone else that can do it as good as she does it. She's able to create these characters that feel like you truly know them. Like I've seen, they feel so realistic and human, and oh my goodness, so good. I think she's just so excellent at being able to create really amazing, dynamic human characters. This is another 5-star book for me, and if you haven't read any of her books, please read them. Please, please, please. They are so well written. The next one I read is Clara and the Sun, another 5-star book for me. This is kind of a sci-fi dystopian type of book about Clara, who is artificial intelligence. It's a beautiful, beautiful story about what it means to be human, and I really enjoyed how these artificial intelligence in this are not trying to take over the world. They're actually trying to help humanity, and I thought it was such an interesting take on it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought the ending was so poetic and beautiful. If you're looking for a book that will make you think, this one is the one. All right, the next one is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This is my second Grady Hendrix book, and I was a little bit disappointed with this one as well. I think I gave it a 2 stars actually. This book is inspired by all of the final girls in like slasher films, which I think is a really cool concept. They are in a support group together where they talk about the things that they've gone through. Lynette, the main character, is the only one who's still kind of stuck in this final girl type of mentality. She's very paranoid all the time, and her only friend is a plant, which, listen, I can relate to that. But being paranoid actually ends up being a good thing for her because there is someone who's trying to kill all of the final girls. So they have to kind of band together in order to find who the murderer is, as well as stay alive. It's definitely a really fun book. I think Grady Hendrix is really good at making things funny and making serious kind of like scary topics a little more comedic. So I really enjoy his writing. I just didn't enjoy the twist on this either. And I also don't think I loved the main character very much. So it was kind of hard for me to get into it because I just thought that Lynette was a little bit frustrating at times, but I think she was supposed to be. So I can understand why someone would really enjoy this book, but it just wasn't for me. Another coffee break. So good. I have 4 more books left, so we're almost through. The next book is The Shadows Between Us. This is actually another 2-star book for me. Very sad. This is a Slytherin romance, which I love the idea of. The main character's name is Alessandra, and her whole scheme is to marry the Shadow King, kill him, and then take the kingdom for herself. Definitely a Slytherin type of a scheme there. But she's not the only one who's trying to kill the king, so she has to try to keep him alive so she can marry him. I think the main problem with this is that Alessandra felt like she was trying too hard. You guys know that I love The Cruel Prince, and the reason that I love The Cruel Prince is because Jude was amazing, phenomenal, like such a BA Slytherin. But Alessandra felt like kind of a ripoff of Jude to a certain extent, and I just didn't enjoy her as much. I also wasn't super attached to the plot. I mean, it sounds cool, but when you're actually reading it, it's like, well, I kind of know what's gonna happen, you know? It definitely was an entertaining book, and I don't regret reading it, but just not one of my favorites. Okay, next one is Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This was a 5-star read for me. I loved it so much. I don't really feel like I need to talk about the plot of this because I think this is like the fantasy fae book series. But just know that I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to read the second one. I really loved Reese, which no surprise there. I really liked that the main baddie in this was like actually evil. Like she was bad. I liked that there wasn't any sort of like redeeming qualities really of her. She's just bad. So yeah, I really liked that part of the book. I think my favorite part was when the main character Feyre was having to do all of these like tasks for Amarantha, who is like the main baddie in this. And I really enjoyed reading those parts. But yeah, definitely excited to continue this. The next one I read during Halloween, and that is Seance Tea Party. This is the cutest, most beautiful little graphic novel. I love the cover. This is about Laura, who is afraid of growing up. She still loves doing all of the things that she did as a kid, which means that some of her friends are starting to grow apart from her. So one day she decides to do a seance tea party where she meets this cute little ghost named Alexa, and together they form a friendship, which kind of makes Laura step outside of her comfort zone and meet new friends and do new things. And it's just such a cute story about growing up and how hard it is to grow up sometimes. If you guys are looking for a cute little book to pick up in October next year, a year from now, then I highly recommend this one. The last book I have, I did not read anything in November, as you can tell. Sad day, but the last book that I have is These Holo Vows by Lexi Ryan. This was a 4-star book for me. I really enjoyed it. Definitely very similar to A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm kind of glad that I read them pretty close to each other because I feel like I was able to see a lot of similarities between the two. This is about Bree, who lives with her sister, and they are really close with each other, mostly because her mom abandoned her and her sister for a fae. Her sister gets taken by a sadistic king of the Unseelie court, so she decides that she has to rescue her, which means that she has to go to the fae world to be a potential wife for the fae prince, Ronan. She seeks help from a band of misfits. The leader of them's name is Finn, and he's dark and mysterious. So she has the prince, Ronan, and Finn, and she's kind of stuck between the two of them, deciding which side is more right and which side could help her free her sister. I really enjoyed the main character in this, and the second book comes out sometime next year, so definitely we'll be picking that one up. All right, friends, well, those are all of the books that I read over the past 6 months. I'm going to be doing a separate video where I talk about my favorite books from 2020, so some of these might be on there, but I'll go into more depth of why they are my favorite books of the year. If you have any recent reads that you've absolutely loved, definitely let me know in the comments. I would love to add them to my TBR for next year. I love doing the little emoji thing because it makes me feel like, okay, you guys are actually watching my video all the way through. So if you've gotten this far, put a little stack of books or a regular book, any type of book you want, in the comments below. But that is the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching and for commenting and liking all the things that you do. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.